Hey everybody, welcome to At Their Feet. My name is Zarinah El-Amin, and this is the place where we are able to sit at the feet of our elders. We're able to glean, hopefully, some of their experiences, their knowledge, their expertise, the things that have made their lives worth living. All of us have those things that have happened in life that if we share them, we can hopefully help somebody else do life just a little bit better. So, we're going to be having a continued series of At Their Feet sessions where we're going to interview both the people who are in the book at their feet, as well as other elders throughout our community. So, hopefully, we can stop this evaporating trend of allowing our information and our wisdom and our knowledge to just go into the ethers, right? We understand now that if we do not capture our stories, it's only our fault. No one else is responsible for capturing our stories. That's on us. And also, we understand that if we don't do it, someone else could very well do it and not in a way that is flattering or even truthful. We see now that there are books being banned. We see now that history is trying to be rewritten and school curriculums are literally being changed in front of our faces to include things that are not true in order to alter the way that our future sees what truly happened in the past. We cannot allow that to happen on our watch. And a big part of it for humanity as a whole is for us to capture our true stories. And a big part of it for our families as well, our individual families. I'm talking about you, your children, your nieces, your nephews, your grandma, your uncles, your great grandchildren. It's our responsibility to capture this for our own families as well. Many of you all know that my parents have passed on. May Allah have mercy on their soul and grant them paradise. Ameen. And my father, we were able to publish his book. Alhamdulillah, I'm very thankful for that. My mother published her dissertation. Alhamdulillah, I'm very thankful for that. But every single day I realize that like when people die, they really do die. Like you don't have an opportunity to talk to them and ask them any more questions, right? And I realized that so many opportunities I had when I could have sat at their feet and asked both about their lives and what they could remember from their grandmothers and such, right? And I did not take those opportunities. And at worst, we weren't able to capture everything for my future generations. But what I can do now, since I realized my mistake, right? We can only learn and do better. So I realized my mistake. So my job now is to make sure that I capture the living legacy of the elders in my family that are still remaining, and that I capture my own legacy and information and knowledge and skills and expertise for my children, my great grandchildren, my great 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 grandchildren, you know what I mean? So that I can give them that precious, priceless gift of having knowledge and a firsthand account of the personality and the life experience of one of their ancestors. We can't change what happened in the past, but we can change what we do right now today. So that is our charge. That is our goal, is to help as many people capture the written legacy of their own individual families as well as the communities that they are a part of and that are important to them. All right. So that's what At Their Feet is all about. I want to give a quick shout out to my co-authors here, Dr. Alyssa Perkins and Aya Rashid, who were very instrumental in making sure that this book came to life. And also, of course, the 50 entries that we were able to glean for this first volume. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you all who allowed us to hear your, secrets, if you will, to get an intimate insider view into your life. We really, truly, truly, truly appreciate it. All right. So for those of you who are here joining us, please share this out on your social media pages. Please put something positive into the ethers, into the energetic fields of the world. We know we have so much other stuff going on that we have to like blast our stuff out there to counter all that other crap. So share this out. Allow other people to be able to sit at their feet of our elders, right? And so that we can continue to propagate this message of learning, respecting our elders, and being able to glean their information so that we can improve our lives. All right, that sound good? All right, so I'm just going to show a quick little slide show, if you will, of some of the other people who have been on At Their Feet. And then right after that, I'm going to introduce our illustrious guests. That's a hint, not just one guest. Guests. I'm going to introduce them in just a moment and we're going to get started. So, welcome everyone. Share this out while we're doing this. Dun, 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 dun. All right. All right, everybody. So today I'm going to introduce to you Mama Khai'dah Muhammad who is a mother of two daughters. She's an auntie, a caregiver, an avid researcher, chess player, and lover of jazz music. She is the wife of Abdul Haadee Muhammad who is featured in At Their Feet, page 76. What is it? 89, I think. Page 89, chapter 13 of At Their Feet. So if you have the book, type in there, you saw it. So, Mama Khai'dah was born in New York City. She has a diverse career and she worked as a substitute teacher for elementary schools, a librarian, and now she is an official reader at the Library of Congress. I can't wait to talk to her about that. In addition to her professional accomplishments, she has also made a significant impact in her community. She opened the International Family Resource Center in Tampa, Florida, at the Islamic Society of Tampa Bay in 2008, which has helped Muslim immigrants learn important skills such as reading, writing, and filling out job applications. She has traveled to multiple U.S. states, the Gambia, the Virgin Islands, and in 2008, she completed her Hajj pilgrimage in Mecca and Medina, Saudi Arabia. In 2014, Mama Khai'dah received a personalized response from former President Barack Obama after writing a letter to him. The president signed a proclamation declaring September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and Mama Khai'dah received a copy of the proclamation. Inspired by this, she created a retinoblastoma awareness poster and awareness blog to support Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, also held every September. Mama Khai'dah is happily retired now. Woo, that's what I'm getting to, that happy retirement, and lives with her husband in the Cherokee Creek Nation of Muskogee, Oklahoma. So I'm going to bring her on right now. And then you're also going to see with her, or why I said guests. So, Mama Khai'dah, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yes, and next to her is my dear sister Zaakirah, and Zaakirah is just a lovely all around, I would call her like a creative entrepreneur. She is someone that makes sure that other people are able to hear messages, just like what we're trying to do here At Their Feet, amplify people's stories. Zaakirah has done that in her own right with her interview series that she puts together with different authors and such. But she also has a very powerful testimony of being a cancer survivor, which is why you heard in Mama Khai'dah's bio about the work around childhood cancer survivor awareness and all of that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today, because that, I think, I don't know how to frame it, test, a gift. I don't know like how you frame it or whatever, but that's definitely something that Mama Khai'dah had to contend with in her life as a parenthood and motherhood. And I think that that's extremely important for people who are dealing with some hardships that they may not understand, and to be able to get through those without going crazy. You know what I mean? So Zaakirah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. All right, so let's jump right into it. I want to start really with how we got here today, and that is that we put this book at their feet together. And Zaakirah, you saw the call for submissions online, and then you said, "Okay, I definitely want my parents or such to be involved in here." And in the book, we have your father, and hopefully in the next edition, we'll have an actual entry from your mother as well. But Zaakirah, before I started talking with your mom, I just want to hear from you why you felt it was important enough for you to put time and effort into getting their entry into the book.
Yeah, just like you said, especially in the introduction, storytelling is a very powerful tool. And when I did see the call to action, ironically enough, my dad had been willing to narrate his story through my audio podcast. And so when I asked him about, would you like to be in the book? It took some thinking, but eventually he was like, yeah, this is my legacy, and I'm willing to share my story. And so then my mom and I together worked on just making sure that it's educational, making sure that it's simplified, especially as we share the journey, it through Islam, not just to it, but through it. And it's an amazing story, and I'm honored that he trusted me to be able to trusted me and you to be able to get the story out there. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You had to do some convincing, as you said, with your father. And I realized that for a lot of us, telling our stories is not sometimes it's I won't say scary, but you don't always want to share it with like the world, if you will, because you don't know how they may respond. That could be one reason that some people don't want to share. Some people have had some hard lives too, and they may not want to even go back to thinking about some of the trajectory of their life that brought them, where they are right now. So I appreciate the fact that you actually went through the convincing, because I think that the pros always outweigh the cons when we're trying to talk about this work. So I want to start actually around the cancer, and I'm going to go to your mom in a second, but I want to start around the cancer diagnosis. Um, because I think that's important, and I want to hear like your mother's perspective as a mom. But Zaakirah, can you please tell us like what the diagnosis was for you, and just give us a little bit of background on that so we can frame it from the motherhood perspective as well.
I feel like you could tell this story better.
Well, she's asking me.
All right. So my dad was born in a small town in East Tennessee, and throughout that journey of going back and forth between Tennessee and Ohio is when he was first introduced to Islam. And then as he got older, he continued to gravitate towards the different realms of religion and theology and spirituality. And then it really just became a intention that he set once he became a veteran through the Vietnam era in the Air Force. And so then once he completed his term as a Vietnam veteran, he then decided to get education, a college education, and then move to the city of Atlanta, Georgia.
And she wants to respond to the cancer diagnosis.
And so this is all, really before getting up to being a Vietnam veteran. And then later, I'm the youngest child. So by the time I came into the world, that's when faith was even more solidified, right? I'm a rare childhood eye cancer survivor of retinoblastoma, which at that time, prior to technology, it was rare for a child to survive past the age of 5. So that alone was a huge challenge, and faith played a huge role in ensuring that how does he act and think and be as a father now, right? And what the role of the provider and the role of the protector and the role of having Islam play a huge role in it. So I think from what he shared with me.
So, real quick, so I want to hear like the diagnosis was, what age were you diagnosed at birth with the cancer diagnosis? That was at birth?
6 months.
Oh yeah, I was 6 months old when
Okay,
it
6 months.
yes. Mm-hmm.
So I want to transition. I'm going to come back to your father, and we're going to talk about, the meeting and all of that. We're definitely going to include that. But Mama Khai'dah, so I'm going to come back again to like how you all met. But as a mom, like your daughter is 6 months old and she gets this diagnosis. Can you tell me about like what that time was in your life?
Um, I had never heard the word before. So, so you start out with a foreign language, and you're meeting other parents, and everybody's got a situation that's similar to yours, but nothing is identical. And when you hear these words and you don't understand what they mean, that's when you make the decision right there that either you're going to find out everything you can about this condition, and you can't just rely on the doctors to teach you. You know, they're busy people. And we had an incredible doctor. He was a surgeon, and he took the time, to let us process this information. So what retinoblastoma is, it affects the eyes. It spreads, and when it spreads, it goes in one direction to the brain, or in the other direction into the bones, the bone marrow in particular. And so when they gave us the diagnosis, and of course the statistics, they did not expect a life expectancy of greater than 11 years old. So you're faced with, what do we do now? So we first had to decide who was going to work and who was going to stay home. And
Right.
so my husband had taken his initiative to, work to support the family, and I took on the role of caregiver, which meant sometimes having to stay in the hospital because of the treatments. You couldn't just get a treatment and then leave. So sometimes we ended up having to stay in the hospital. We did a lot of traveling back and forth between home and all the different doctors. You learn about the science of ophthalmology. You learn about the difference between ophthalmology and optometry. You learn about blood conditions, and you learn about every aspect of a child's health, but from an entirely different perspective. So what happened was that I met a lot of parents, because you're sitting around the hospital for hours and hours and hours. And so we got to become familiar with the other patients and familiar with the doctors and all the medical technicians, everybody who was involved, including administration. And it's not the kind of disease that affects one race or another. It was sporadic, as they called it. So children from all over the world were being diagnosed with this condition. Later on, we made the connection between Agent Orange, which the Vietnam veterans were exposed to, and these childhood cancers. And so one thing led to another, and the more people you talk to and the more you read, you really begin to understand that it's not just something that happens. Okay, it wasn't. We did the genetic test, and we found out that this had never occurred in either one of our families before. So then you start to look toward environmental issues. And so your head is just filled with information. And what do you do with all this information? Well, I found a sister in Florida who is an herbalist, and all the little things that you never even think about. How is this affecting my child's sleep pattern, her appetite, her growth? And so this sister has a shop. It's in Herbal Gardens in Sunrise, Florida. And so we started with purifying the blood. And she was very helpful in identifying certain herbs that we could use in addition to, the medical treatments. And also, she took the time to combine, to create herbs that would work for a young child. So
So
the
how old was Zaakirah at this time? Like 3, 4?
yeah, this is before school. This is the first year of her life.
Okay.
So she wasn't even 2. So we were just carrying her around and taking her to where she needed to be, and talking to her and praying for her. And you just leave yourself. It's like an out-of-body experience. You leave yourself. You don't think about yourself. And so not having my husband around made it difficult, because there were certain things that we had to do that I never thought I could do. One thing in particular, which was so interesting, and sometimes we have funny stories from these things, but Zaakirah had to have her eye removed. So we're looking at a prosthetic device, and my fear, my anxiety was about what happens once the patches come off, because after the surgery, she had to wear a patch. And so I was anxious about what do we do when we have to take the patch off. And then I was told about the prosthesis. And you say, okay, we'll try that. And then who was going to clean the prosthesis? Who's going to put it in? Who's going to take it out?
Oh, yeah.
And what happens if it just comes out by itself? What are we supposed to do? And the funny part is that Zaakirah was never bothered by any of this. She would get cranky and irritable, but basically she had no idea, of what we were doing to her every single day or twice a day or however. And the prosthesis had to be changed as she grew. So it wasn't like they could just put it in one time and that would be it. No, we had to go back every 3 months, 6 months. And as soon as she started to get tall or heavier or something would affect it, and then we would have to, they literally made another prosthesis. So we did a lot of communication between medical professionals and health insurance professionals. So, you have to figure out how everything's going to be paid for, and you have to figure out how you're going to get all these supplies that you need. And so basically the first 3 years we were working. We worked with so many people. And I think that's probably what carried over in her, the fact that she's been around so many professional adults her whole life. She had to pick up a lot of information very quickly and process, and I was very impressed with what she understood, because as she was growing and telling me things, and that's how I really began to understand, that this is how she sees her world. Two things that stick out in my mind were the day that she didn't want to wear the prosthesis, and she took it out and put it in my babysitter's apron pocket, and I got a call, a panic call, because the babysitter had no idea what had happened. She just had this eye in her hand. And so I jumped in the car and I went racing across town. And when I got there and I understood what it was that she was saying to me, and Zaakirah was not fazed by any of it, but the babysitter was so traumatized that, she kind of lost it. And she kindly told me, please don't bring your child back here. So
Ah, so did she know? I'm just curious. Did the babysitter know that Zaakirah had a
well,
prosthetic eye?
when you say that to people, they don't think that they're ever going to see a prosthetic eye.
Yeah.
One of the other parents told me that the kids at school kept prodding her son, and they wanted to see it, and so he just took it out to show his friends, and then he dropped it in somebody's water or milk or something, and all the kids went screaming and running away, and so that ended, the bullying portion of his life. But it's still, what we find out is our children are so resilient, and
Yeah.
the things that we're stressing about are not phasing them.
Mhm.
So
So resilience for her, but then also like you as the mother, the reason I was asking about this is because I'm picturing some of my friends who are, I mean, I'm a mother, right? And I'm picturing my friends who have children with additional needs, right? And I'm thinking of all of the things that they have to juggle and all the mental stuff that comes with trying to make sure that you're doing right by your child and you're, navigating this and that, navigating that. And so for you as a mom, you had your husband who's trying to hold down the front on the financial end because we all got bills to pay and they keep coming. They don't stop. And then that's the thing that gets me. Like life does not stop when you got something going on. It ain't like it just keeps on going, and you have to be responsible for your regular things as well as this new thing. So, like looking back on it now, what do you think like was the thing that allowed you to really keep pushing through, or how did this experience, because it's not over really, but how did this experience color the things that you went on to do after you got her stable and good and ready to go?
Well, when I was pregnant, I used to read the Quran out loud to her, and for my own soul. But when you're in this situation, you have downtime, and what you do with the downtime is really what makes the difference. Some of the mothers, they were able to go to the gym or do something physical, but for me it was an entirely spiritual journey. You start to feel things that you never felt before, and you want to understand things that are going to help you to teach this child how to survive in this world. Excuse me. So when you pray, the prayer is not just about you.
Zaakirah, get your mama some water, please, baby.
I have some.
Okay.
You don't pray for yourself, You have to pray for all the people who are sick, all the people who have fear of life, fear of death, fear of anything. And that's where I went. My mother always used to tell us that when you think about your own problems and you don't think about other people's problems, you realize that you're not the only one. You're never going through anything as the only person on the planet that is having this experience. And so what Islam teaches you is that you have to be concerned about everybody, not just yourself. And that's what really gives you the strength to do all the things that you have to do, because I say to myself every day that I met mothers whose children had lost both of their eyes. I've also met mothers whose children died. So, when I look at it like that, I look at this as a blessing for me. So if I do Allah's will, the blessings will come not just to me, but to all those that I'm able to touch their lives. So when you think of it as something bigger, then you can kind of focus on, the things that you need to do. And Allah gives you the strength, the surah that says Allah will not burden you with something that you can't handle, and
Mhm.
you look back on your life and you think about the things that you've already been through, and you say it's relative, which is worse. It could have been worse. It could have been more devastating. It could have been the end of life. It could have, one of us may not have survived. She has
Mhm.
two parents. And you start to think about all the things that could have happened,
Right.
didn't happen.
Right.
And
Right.
you get up every day and you go to work.
Right. You go to work. Like Allah says, verily with every difficulty comes ease. And I learned now that it's not just after the difficulty, like even in
It's
the middle of the difficulty,
very
there is
difficult.
ease. There is ease in that moment. So for those who are interested more in Zaakirah's story, with her childhood diagnosis of cancer, you can read her book, which you can get on Amazon. I don't know if you have a copy of your book, Zaakirah, but what is the name of the book again?
So there's one aspect of it is at their feet, but the rest of it is in seeing life through a different lens, a survivor's memoir on overcoming adversity with resilience.
Seeing life through a different lens. So you can go to Amazon and look up that Seeing Life Through a Different Lens by
Mm.
Zaakirah Naayar. I'll put the link in the chat, and I would love for you all to go and hear her story and hear about her journey, and then how she is using her journey to help people now. All right, so Mama Khai'dah, I want to talk about faith real quick, and then we're going to get into why we named this thing called Checkmates, right? Your life with some of the other things that you did. But I'm just curious, you seem like faith obviously plays a very big role in your life now. And I'm curious, just your coming to Islam story, if you will. How did that happen for you?
Um, I was in New York actually, and I was invited to the mosque on 116th Street where Malcolm X was then minister.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to one of the meetings and talked with a sister and got just a brief summary of what the Nation of Islam was all about. The next incident was it was a poetry reading with Nikki Giovanni, and she did it at the church where Reverend Wyatt Walker, it was his church. And so she had her poetry reading there, and the brothers from the Nation of Islam, which was right down the street, were doing the security for the event. And so Malcolm X and Wyatt T. Walker were both together. And the relationship brought them to the point where, they wanted to clean up that part of Harlem because it was mostly drugs at that point. And this was back in the 60s. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I saw the ministers working together and their focus was on cleaning up that neighborhood, running the drug dealers out of that area. And then the restaurant opened. And so we had a place to go and we could eat halal food and also listen to the lectures that were going on. Sometimes they would broadcast them while they were going on inside the restaurant as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started to hear more and more about Brother Malcolm because he was on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And
But how old are you right now, though? How old were you at that time?
I was coming out of high school, about the last year.
Out of high school. Wow. Okay.
So about 70. And when I was listening to his lectures, he was always in the same place, the same time every week. And so when you walk past where he was in front of the Teresa Hotel, there's a subway right there. And so people were literally coming out of the subway and hearing him speak. And a lot of people would stop and, ask questions. And I did the same. And I ended up meeting a brother who he owned a bookstore. And so the books that I was getting talked a lot about African Muslims. The next sign, and I call them signs, but when I went to a Sunni masjid, it was not far from Harlem. and it was an international community. And so they had a library there. And one of the sisters, I walked into the masjid not knowing that it was Juma. And I walked into the masjid that day, and she invited me to stay and look through the books at the library. And so the more I started to read, and I didn't feel any pressure. It was not like somebody was saying, "Oh, you got to take Shahada, you got to do this, you got to do that." No, I read and I studied, and I talked to other Muslims, and I spent time around Muslims. And so when I took the Shahada, it was because that's what I wanted to do with my life. I had a close friend.
How old were you then when you took the Shahada?
About 21.
Okay, so it's like 4 years of like studying, getting involved, seeing, searching.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then travel. So I actually got more involved with a masjid once I left New York. I moved from New York to Atlanta and attended the masjids there. And this was all before I met my husband. And then when I met my husband and found out that he was Muslim, because I was introduced to him by a third party, a non-Muslim. And so everybody just kind of assumed that we knew each other, all Muslims know each other, that kind of stuff. So I had no idea, who he was or what was going on. But it was at the point where my oldest daughter was getting ready to graduate from high school. And she met him first. And, daughters, when they know, they know. And so it's mom. So after all the graduation stuff was done, he had a limousine service. So he provided the service for the graduates. And that's how we met. And then the more we talked about Islam and the fact that the Muslims in Atlanta, I had one of the teenage girls refer to some Muslims that were doing things differently as New Age Muslims. And so, when you're in these various communities, you see different things. So leaving an international mosque and then being in the South, it was just such a contrast. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, something's missing. And after I got married and both of us attended the same mosque and, got to know more people and learn more about the deen, that's when I think things kind of began to settle in for me, for my head. Because my mother attended the AME church.
Okay.
My father attended a Catholic church.
Okay.
And having conversations with them about faith and religion and why our family did what they did. And so when I learned the history of the AME church, then the dots began to connect, because from my understanding about slavery, the AME church was more or less the cover for the Muslims. They wanted to practice Islam and they could not practice Islam. And so they called themselves African Methodist Episcopalians, just so that they would be able to exist in a Christian community. And so when I started to understand more about the AME church and who these people were that attended the AME church and what they were teaching, and I saw the correlation. And it was very easy for me to, make that connection. And so then talking to my parents and understanding what they say, and it was not in cohesion with the Christianity that we all are familiar with. They were saying something entirely different. And when I approached my mother about Islam, and her attitude was, if that's what's in your heart, do it. And so she didn't say don't do it or stay away.
at 17 though, or was that at the 21 side? Like, how old were you when you were talking to her about it?
My relationship with my mother is, she said we live parallel lives. I talk to my mother like she's the sun. And so every day the sun comes up, I'm talking to her, and the things that she's saying, it's not about a particular subject, but it's about life. And so talking to her every single day, you get to know how she feels about certain things and how she learned about certain things. And, you just go on. So I would say from the time I learned to read, I was able to talk to my mother about every question that I had in my mind about everything. So this went on. But the day that I told her that I was going to marry this man and he's a Muslim and we're going on to be Muslims, and I think that was it. That was pretty much it, because the first thing she said to me when I told her about the cancer diagnosis was, only your faith can get you through this.
Wow.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. All right. So let me put the little dots together. Okay. So the thing that the reason why I always ask about like the coming to Islam for our members in your age, in your age bracket, if you will, is because I'm absolutely fascinated by the fact that, teenagers are making these major decisions and having stuff going on in their life that is opening them up to like a new religious path, a new spiritual path,
Mm,
and some of the others that I spoke with told me that they came to Islam, at 14 years old, or during
mm,
that teenage time when nowadays people are worried about prom and, you know,
mhm,
the
mhm,
all of that. And it just seems, I don't know yet, we need to like figure it out, like why your generation is such a spiritually strong generation where you literally were looking for stuff or had like Allah placed something in you to make you search and figure out like what was going to be the best spiritual path and brought you to Islam. I don't know yet, like what it is, but we need to
No.
figure out because your generation, I think, is a little bit unique, if you will.
Well, I think that one of the contributions is that growing up in the 60s, there was so much going on, and our parents could only take us so far in terms of their understanding of civil rights and human rights and racial discrimination. They could only go so far. And we had to more or less figure it out on our own. Like, how are we going to get through this? I went to an all white school. And when I began to hear about school integration, and I was like, what is that about? Why is that happening? And when you begin to question, and as a teacher, you look for the children who are most curious.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones that want to understand the world that they live in. And your curiosity is what's going to lead you on this path. But also, Islam teaches you that only Allah can touch your heart. Everybody in the world can give you all of the historical documents and the books, and you can attend every single masjid on the planet. But if Allah has not put this in your heart, then you're not going to grow in the deen. You're not going to see all the things that Allah is opening up to you. So when it says, pay attention to the signs, you get at a crossroad and you have to decide, am I going this way or am I going that way? But things happen to you in your life to make you want to hold on to something of your own. And I think that's basically what it is. You want something that will be just for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get you through the day. It's going to get you through any illness, any madness, any mental health issues. You have to have something of your own that you can rely on, you can depend on, you can call upon when needed. And so we're in a situation in this world where we're walking into unknown spaces and we don't know what's going to happen. So we have to trust something. And some people call it intuition, but I call it faith. So when the table turned was when my father died.
Mm.
I was 17 years old. And so I think that more or less impacts how you begin to see the world. We just said to ourselves as children, I have 3 sisters and a brother. And so when we talk to each other and they're saying things that I don't understand and I'm saying things that they don't understand, and then we got to go figure out, well, why is it? Why is it this way? What happened? And so when you're a child and a parent dies and you say, where did he go? What happened? And so that turn, that's the turn that made me want to think more about what life really means, make me want to think about why we're here. All those questions that you ask and your children will ask, you start to really consider, where am I going to find these answers? How am I going to give myself the correct information? And so that's the search. That begins the search. So, when we had to see people getting assassinated on TV and people getting injured just because they're different, and when you read the Quran and it says, are they going to kill you just because you believe that there's Allah? So, you start to put the pieces together and you want to know, who are my people? How did they get here? And what are we supposed to do in this situation? I went to Hajj with a sister from Brooklyn, and that same topic came up again. How did we end up being the ones to accept Islam? Why did Allah choose us? Why? And so she said to me that her impression of the transatlantic slave trade was a way of moving Muslims from one part of the world to another part of the world. Propagate Islam. It was dawah. That's what it was. So when you think about the things that have influenced you and why Allah chose you over your best friend or your neighbor, or somebody else, then it makes you feel special. Special.
And gave you something to govern your life by, as you said. I always feel for myself. I have a lot of theological questions that, have, I won't say plagued me, but as you're saying, that Allah put something in you that made you begin a search, right? That search was placed in you. You listened and you actually actively began to seek out knowledge and seek out information that was going to be satisfactory to your soul, right? And when you found that knowledge and information that was satisfactory to your soul, you jumped in and changed the whole rest of your life. You know what I mean? Changed the whole rest of your life. And I'm asking this because I have theological questions, myself, and some other people have theological. Everybody, like Allah puts it in us that we are looking and searching for Him, right? Like that is what we're going for. But I feel like not all of us always do the work, if you will, like the research, the going here, the reading, the studying, in order to actually get those answers. And I feel like you being a studious person, obviously you just didn't take it on the surface. Like you literally studied and then dove in and it changed your whole life. That's not like you're not a surface liver type of person, living type of person. You're somebody that thinks deeply. So I just want to just thank you real quick for the reminder that when God puts something in us that is a question or something that we feel some ambivalence about, like we have to go and start the search, for ourselves. We have to go and start the search. So I want to jump real quick because I know we have like about 12 minutes or so, and I love your. I know Zaakirah is like, talk about my dad. You can go get the book right at their feet. You can
read. They can call him.
You can read his
talking to people, so they can call.
They can call him, right? You can go and read his story at their feet. But I'm enjoying like listening to Mama Khai'dah and hearing more about like just the inner workings of motherhood and faith and real spiritual living or such. So I want to talk about your work with the traveling and then the chess and some of the things that you did after you were able to get Zaakirah settled. Because I imagine that during that time, as you said, all your focus was on this baby that you're responsible for, that you're trying to live and do all of those things. And then there comes a point where the downtime for that is there, but then you also had time to re-exert yourself in your own way with your own dreams and your own ideas and goals and things that you have for yourself. So can you talk a little bit about like some of the work that you have done with the networks and some of the other things that you did after getting your children and such settled?
We opened the resource center because I was on the county advisory committee, and we sat in a meeting one day and talked about the various communities that we came from. This was in Hillsborough County in Florida, in Tampa, Florida. And so from the discussion, first of all, we're sitting at a conference table and there were 2 people of color in the room, myself and another educator. And when they were asking us, basically, well, what kind of things do you think would help your community? I was in a community that was basically from people from 23 different nations. The teachers at the schools were dealing with immigrant children who spoke little or no English. The children, of course, spoke more English than their parents. And so what happened was the teachers were taking their issues to the school board and saying, hey, we've got kids that we can't communicate with the parents. We're sending home notes and we're trying to get them to get involved, and they don't know anything about the school system. And so when I heard that, and I started talking to some of the sisters at the masjid who were from all over the world, and we came up with this concept that, the sisters need some place where they can go and learn the language at least. But the first focus was on citizenship. That's the only way that we could get into the resource center network, was because you had to teach adult education. So we went in another direction. We said, okay, well, we'll teach adult education, but we'll also teach other things. And so when we opened the resource center, nobody really understood what it was we were trying to do. We set up computers so that the members of our community could be computer literate. We interacted with everyone in the community so that all the sisters realized that if they didn't speak English and the child needed help in school, there were tutors available, there were community centers available, and there were other ways that we could get the children to thrive in school. And so one incident in particular really opened my eyes. There was a Catholic Charities organization. You may have heard of them. They're international. But the Catholic Charities was the main instrument in bringing immigrants into Florida. And so they brought some people from Burma, which is now called Miramar, and they brought these people into the community and wanted them to attend the church. And they were Muslims. And so when we found out that the children had to go to school, one of the teachers contacted me and said, these people are Muslims. And so they want to find the masjid. And so we had to literally get them from where they were to bring them to the masjid. And it just touched my heart, because when they got out of the vehicle, they ran into the masjid, because that was like the first time since they've been in this country that anybody even acknowledged the fact that, you know, they were Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Christian organization. And so when they got to the point where they wanted to be in our community and they were getting pushback from this Catholic organization, they didn't want to help them to come to the masjid. They didn't want to help them to practice Islam in their homes.
Yeah.
And so the language issue, that we couldn't communicate with them, we didn't speak their language, so we had to find interpreters. And once we figured out how we could help them, we understood that these women, some of them were pregnant, some of them had young babies, some of them had school-age children. And so we went back to the county and said, okay, look, we've got all these people here and we need services to help them. And we wanted to be at the masjid because that's where they knew to come. And that was basically how we got started. And we were helping people learn enough of the language so that they could do the American citizenship test. And also we could help them to attend school meetings with the teachers and get them to help their children get books, get to the libraries, and learn how to live in this new environment that they didn't want to be in. The thing that I think a lot of people assume is that when people come to this country, that they come here with the intention of staying here forever. And that's not the case. A lot of the immigrant families that we met, they came, they wanted to work, they wanted to make money, and they wanted to go back home. And in some cases they couldn't because, you know, wars were going on and other, you know, political things were happening. But yeah, if you sit down and you talk to an immigrant person, that's not their plan, you know, to stay here forever and to raise their children here. That's a certain type of immigrant that comes. Well, you've got poor people and you've got people with wealth. And so the people with wealth are here intentionally. The poor people were forced to come here and forced to live this life that is so foreign to them that it was just unbearable. So the county gave us a grant. I was on the team for the proposal writing. We wrote letters and we had to go do presentations, but we did get funding and we were able to work with the board at the school, the Islamic school, and at the masjid so that everybody knew what we were trying to do. So when they saw me sitting in there, they came in and they said, oh, this is for the Black people. And so we said no. And then when they saw some of the other sisters sitting in there, oh, this is for the Arabs, this is for the Africans, this, you know, and so we said, no, it's for everybody. And so one of the women that worked with me, she was from Senegal. And so she had 2 young children. So she would come and she spoke French fluently. And so she helped do translations for people who spoke French. And then we had other people come in to help translate, you know, that spoke Arabic and spoke other languages. So, you know, everybody wanted it to succeed, and it did. It took off.
So it sounds like there's a real, you know, community effort, if you will. Like this wasn't something that was just singular. This was like a community effort that you all like really sought different people or such to come in and to be able to solve the issue. And but the other thing I want to say about this is that like it's not just that it was a community effort, it's that you all had some type of desire, right? You had a desire, and then you actually put the work in to make sure that that was done. You saw a problem. You didn't just talk about the problem. You actually implemented something to make it happen. Like, and we have maybe about 5, 6, because I feel like I have a million questions that I could ask you. And I may have to do a whole part 2, you know, of this conversation.
Well, because let me just say this. On the grounds at the Islamic Society, there was a clinic, a free clinic, the Red Crescent Clinic. And so it came full circle for me because that was my opportunity to heal. The doctors at the clinic were able to get the children in the clinic to get their examinations, and do all the vaccinations and everything that they needed for school. But
Mhm.
working in this environment was what healed me. We didn't
Wait,
charge.
how do you mean? How do you mean?
Well, the issue that I had mostly was with the doctors who misdiagnosed my daughter. And so that, you harbor something there, that mistrust. And
Mhm.
so working with those doctors there, they were all Muslims, and talking to them, the pediatricians, and helping them to understand that this eye cancer is something like a shot in the dark. And
Mhm.
if you don't diagnose it correctly, you miss it. And so they didn't have this information. And that's what I found out, that not only was it here in this Muslim community, but it could be in every Muslim community, where
Mhm.
one day we had a conversation about what happens if you don't hear the azan. We just assume that, oh, someone is reciting the azan. But what about the children or the adults that don't hear it? That
Mhm.
means there's something else. So having the medical people at we had access to them, we could talk to them, and we could bring this information to them. And that's basically what I wanted to do. I wanted every pediatrician in the world to know how to properly do an eye exam on a young child so that they could catch this.
Early. Man, when I think about stuff like that, as far as all of the knowledge that you gain from dealing with it through all those years yourself, that's knowledge. I won't say nobody wants it, but it's like it's necessary knowledge, but it's something that you learned. You didn't seek out to learn that. You know what I mean? Like it was all of this knowledge that you had to learn and that it was given to you. And then you kind of wonder, why do I have all this knowledge? Like why do I have all of this now? And then here's a place where you're using that knowledge,
Mhm.
in a way to be able to help others. All of that, I don't even know the word. It's like organic knowledge that you gleaned from just living your every day-to-day life. You didn't go to school for that. It's
Mhm.
like the school of life gave you
Mhm.
that knowledge,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then you're able to utilize it and help. So I'm gonna read some of the comments real quick, and then I gotta put in here like checkmates. I gotta put in the chess. So we definitely gotta end on that, like the chess and the chessmates, checkmates. But I want to read some of these comments and just shout out some of the people here. So, Mukhtara Kennedy, wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for joining us. Sister Lydia, wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for joining us too. Jathia, wa alaikum salam. Brother Anthony, wa alaikum salam. These are all people shouting you out, sister. So, Sister Catherine says, I agree with the generational references. That's probably in relationship to me asking,
Mhm.
your particular generation,
Mhm.
like, so there was a special calling on you all.
Mhm.
Amina, that's when I used to say Ace Boon Coon, but I heard that had like racial meanings to it, so I ain't gonna go there right now. But Amina says, Assalamu alaikum. I'm enjoying this interview. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for joining us, Amina. Patricia, Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. So inspiring. Thank you. Brother Khalil, Alhamdulillah. Thanks for the knowledge. Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. And who was the top?
Actually,
Yes.
my favorite comment, Zarina. Thanks for the knowledge.
Thanks for the knowledge. Thank you for the knowledge. So, all right, Sister Khaidah, checkmates. Why did we put checkmates? What's that all about? Please let
Well,
us know.
we went to the Gambia.
Mm-hmm.
My lovely
Where
daughter,
did you go?
my lovely daughter married a Gambian man,
Mm-hmm.
and um, he kept saying, "Oh, you have to go. You have to go meet my family. You have to go." And so I was joking, and I said, "Well, if you make all the arrangements and stuff, we'll go." And so we went, and when I was watching the children play soccer one day and listening, to all. Now it's interesting because they say that Gambia is an English-speaking country. They teach English in school. Okay, there are Islamic schools, but the priority is not on reading English. And so what I found out was that these children are so smart because they're not taught the way that we were taught, where you have to sit down and actually read, write, take tests and the whole bit. They are doing it from memory. And so when you have a mind like that, where you can memorize and you can remember, and you're a visual learner, you see this and you do this. And the fact that they prayed during the school day, we heard the azan for every prayer, and we heard these children reciting Quran. And it was just the most beautiful thing, you know, yeah. And everybody's dressed in hijab, and everybody was so peaceful, because my husband and I both commented, we said, we haven't heard the police sirens, fire engines. We didn't hear any of that, you know, no street noises, that, you know, no railroads running through your community and cussing and fighting, and no gunshots. And so I said, wow, you know, talking to the children, you begin to think about things that would help. They didn't have electricity in the school, no computers in the school, and no windows. So when we went to visit the school, you know, we could just literally look into the classroom, and the boys and the girls were sitting together. So I was thinking about how we grew up. You know, we had board games, and a 12-year-old child taught me how to play chess. And so all these children that we were seeing every day were between 8 and 12. And so, you know, and I said, well, if I could teach one child how to play chess, and they could teach all the others. And so I bought 3 chess sets while I was there, and I gave 1 to 3 different families, you know, to see what was going to happen. The first thing that happened was that the elder in the community said, oh, no, we don't play games. And the next comment he made was, the girls don't have time to play games. Girls were up early in the morning, helping with the food preparation, running to the market. I mean, the girls were just busy. Just busy. And so when I sat down, there was 2 young girls in the compound where we stayed, and they were close in age. And so I said, well, let me see what happens, because I tried to teach my daughter how to play chess. And she sat with her friends. They were all in the same school together. They sat there, and after they learned how to play, they would quit at some point and say, oh no, I don't want her to lose. And I saw this lack of competition in girls in the United States. When I taught the girls in the Gambia, it was a whole different experience, because they wanted to win. They wanted to understand the game enough to win. But being in education, you look at what else chess will bring to the table. And so you have to be able to think. And that's what I told my daughter when I took her to school the first day. And I said, the only reason that you're in this school is because these teachers are going to help you learn how to think for yourself. They can't teach you anything that you don't want to learn. If you want to learn it, you will have processing information. You will know how to use this information. And so when we got there and we saw that everybody was kind of interested in doing this, and then this one gentleman, he was a technician, and he picked it up just like that. And then he said, I'm going to play the computer. And he came one day and said, oh, I played the computer and I won. And I was like, okay, this is the correct environment for something like this. And then I found out that in the country of the Gambia, they had a chess federation. This brother, Maurice Ashley, he was the first Black person to become a grand chess master in the United States. And then he traveled to Africa and encouraged them and worked with them to add chess to the curriculums in the schools. There's a whole curriculum. It's called Chess in Schools. And sometimes they're starting with elementary school age. I mean, 3 years old, 4 years old. And then they're going to the adults. The chess grandmaster now is a girl who is 12. And so
Wow.
I saw this as an extension of the Resource Center network. And I said, oh, we can help this team. We can form our own team, get the school involved, get the parents involved, and the competitions. I mean, some of the competitions, the kids are winning, thousands of dollars. So when I found out that they already had the curriculum in some of the schools in Africa, then we found out that there was a office, the Gambian Chess Federation existed right there in the capital city of Banjul. And so we went to the school, we talked to the administrator, and they were like, sure, why not? It's a competition. And they were already having competitions for spelling and math and other things. So it fit right in. And they were so receptive. So we said, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to formulate a program. And we met a carpenter because the bed that we slept in, it was the most beautiful headboard that I had ever seen in my life. And I said, oh, who made this? And so when they said the carpenter, I went to the carpenter, asked him to build a chess table that we could give to the school. And when the kids saw the table and the chess pieces, there was so much excitement. I mean, it was just something that you never even thought about. And I said, well, this is how people get from one stage to another stage. And when you learn to play chess, you begin to think like the board game. What you want to do is know who's going to do what next. You don't wait. You have a plan. You have a goal. I want to win. Checkmate. So 3 brothers.
One moment, because this right here, to me,
brothers.
I'm gonna let you finish. I just want to just for those who are listening, right? I hope that you are hearing the tenacity that's involved with putting together a program, right? She said she saw an issue there. She wanted to do something. She tested. You have to listen to the process of what people do sometimes in order to actualize dreams, because a lot of people think about doing something and then they get to one little idea and then they just shut it down because they don't actually see it's a process. So what Sister Khaidah said was that she saw an issue on the street, just in the community. She thought that she had a solution that could at least help in that realm, right? Then she tested. She bought 3, chess sets. She gave them to 3 different families, and then she listened to see what the response was going to be. She listened to the objections to this new solution that she was introducing in the community, and she also listened to the yay, the appreciation, enthusiasm. Yes, enthusiasm as well. She listened to that. She took that data in, made adjustments, and then reached out to get support for her project to see what type of influencers that are in that particular community could help to actualize this program and make it a reality. So I'm just pulling this out real quick because all of us in our own community see different issues that we witness different issues that are occurring. Sometimes we think we may have a solution that could assist or whatever. We may tell somebody and then we just leave it at that. But you actually put in the work and the process in order to actually actualize and make it happen. So I just want to say kudos to you. And for those of us who are listening, understand that implementation of programs and the building of programs and infrastructure requires a process and requires you to continue to move. So now I interrupted you, Sister Khaidah, but you were going to tell us about 3 brothers, I believe.
Yeah. I was going to say there's a movie, Cuba Gooding. He's one of the stars in the movie, but the movie is about a man named Eugene, who was in prison and was in and out of prison most of his life. And he wrote a book and he wrote this movie. And so what he was trying to say is that he was a teenager when he went to jail the first time. And then he met a man who taught him how to play chess, and he was in prison. And so each time he returned back to prison, he was more skillful in playing chess. And so he said it was playing the game that helped him to realize that he had to do something else with his life. And so the movie talks about how he went from prison to the community, and the community chess house that he opened to teach other young men in particular. He was focusing on the young brothers, but to teach them how to think. And so it says the name of his book is Think Before You Move. And it's all about his journey from the streets of, well, I think he was in Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. And so him, his son, and a couple of other brothers, they bought this house, renovated this house, and turned it into a chess house. And so he's one of the brothers. And then the other brother was the chess master himself. In 1998, he became the first Black chess master. And he was born in Jamaica and transplanted to Brooklyn. And so he said that he had to figure out how he was going to live his life without his mother. She left to go ahead of him and make a home for them, him and his brother. And so he said when he got to New York, you know, he had to adapt very quickly. So they lived in Brooklyn, and he made his way into Manhattan. And where I learned how to play chess is the same place where he learned, on the street in Washington Square Park, because that's where people played, out in the parks. And so some people played for money, they were hustlers, and then some just played for the love of the game. And so his journey is he's written several books, but he's now developed software to take into the schools so that any child who wants to learn can learn. And then when you start to see that he took the time to go around to East African countries and the South African countries and get them to put chess clubs together so that these children could compete on an international level. And when I heard the responses of the children who got to compete, I think from the Gambia, they went to India for a competition. And that's the first time a lot of these children have traveled.
Ever traveled, right. Yeah.
So, you know, so everything, like I said, Allah puts you on this path, gives you all the signs you need, all the help you need, pushes you in this direction. When I read in the Quran that your destiny is already written, when you're born, the day you're born, it's in black and white. This is what this person is here for. And then you start to see, you know, so just being able to accept people, love everybody for the sake of Allah, respect everybody. That's how you learn.
That's how you
I cannot say, you know, I tried doing homeschooling, but it was on the virtual schools.
Yeah.
So I did it that way. But when you sit in the classroom, you don't get this world experience. You won't get it, you know, and especially if you have a closed-minded teacher. So travel and playing games. Children learn by playing games.
That's true. Yeah.
And when you play games, sometimes you know the opponents and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you're with friends and sometimes you're with enemies. But you have to learn how to function in every situation that you find yourself. Bottom line.
Yeah. So Sister Lydia said the name of the movie is The Life of a King.
Yes.
I think.
King.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody can see it.
So, alhamdulillah, jazakallahu khairun, Sister Khaidah, thank you so much
Thank you.
for sharing with us today, for giving us some of the instances that happen, you know, in life for you, and for reminding us to have faith and get through the things that we have, the adversities, you know, that have been given to us with faith. but also with absorbing the knowledge that we're given, and then giving that knowledge and helping and assisting wherever we see that we are to be used, wherever we see that we are to be used. Zaakirah, thank you so much, my dear, for allowing your mother to share with us today. I say allowing because it was you really who put this whole thing together between your father, you, and your mom. So I thank you so much for sharing with us and for facilitating and making sure all the tech and stuff goes. And Zaakirah, I see a light in you, and I pray that Allah continues to allow the community to use you with everything that you have as well. You are special, and you have something I think that can, inshallah, assist the people that you touch. So may Allah continue to help you to ascend and help us to use you in beautiful ways, inshallah. I mean, Sister Khaidah, I'm going to give you the final word. Is there any last thing that you would like to say today to the audience who are here, or just to people who watch this in the future?
Well, I want to say that Islam is not mysterious. Two comments that I heard is that Muslims are always so serious, and the other one was Muslims don't have a sense of humor. And so I think that kind of puts people off, that we don't laugh enough and we don't share enough. I like talking to people. I like hearing their stories. And I do that because everybody had to travel a certain way in order to get to where they are, mentally, spiritually. And so as you listen to other people's journeys, then you realize, well, we're not all that different. Everybody has to have a comfort level of some kind. And so what's your comfort level? But when I read the Quran, and I talked to one sister who said, oh, you'll never learn. It's too much. I can't teach you, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I can teach myself. And so what I've taught myself is that if you don't know a word, you look it up. If you don't understand a concept, you find a teacher, talk to somebody who knows. And if you are patient, it will all come together.
Alhamdulillah. On that note, you all, look up the things that you don't know, find a teacher to teach you so that we may get the knowledge. And I'm going to remind you all to please, please, please continue to sit at the feet of the elders in your family and in your community. Go to them, ask them questions, record their stories, write down these things for future generations, because we already know that we are in a cultural war. We see that knowledge is actually being changed. Facts are literally being changed right before our eyes. We're seeing books being banned and things that have powerful information that we know should be out there, but they are banning them. So we see that. So it's our responsibility to do what we can do in order to make sure that truth propagated. All right. Love you all. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful evening. Yes, please go get your book at their feet. Get your book at their feet. And then also go get Zaakirah's book as well on Amazon. I'm going to put the link in here. So I'll adjust the stuff later. Put the link in here so you can go get Zaakirah's book and leave a review on both At Their Feet's Amazon page as well as Zaakirah's Amazon page as well. All right, my dears. Love you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.